actual count on a consistent basis, first and foremost, so we're measuring our success. We're not going to solve homelessness in San Francisco, but what we can do is we can get people off the streets, and we have the money, the ability to do that. We just lack the leadership from the mayor. So first thing I would do is we would need to stand up over around 1,500 shelter beds. We've always been pushing a permanent supportive housing first model in our city. We need to shift to get more shelter beds done. I did some of that in the city already. Some of it also needs to be transitioned to abstinence-based housing, because if we're really being honest, the crisis on the streets is really a mental health and a drug addiction issue. We just passed the millionaire's tax so we can reform some of that money and get more mental health and drug addiction beds off the street, online, so we can get people off the streets and into that rehabilitation. We have to do that, we have to do it aggressively. St. Mary's and St. Francis were just bought by UCSF. We have hundreds, if not thousands of beds we can get online. So we would do that. And then lastly, I'll say this. Homeward Bound program started, I worked for Mayor Gavin Newsom 20 years ago. It got 13,000 people sent back to their loved ones in their hometown. We need to do that. We need to do that aggressively. And I passed legislation to make that permanent.
I have a follow-up question. You talked about mental health and drugs. There are still a lot of legal and political implications that need to be worked out. But what is your take on self-injection or safe drug consumption sites?
Listen, I've come out and said we need to have the whole gamut. Surprisingly, the police in New York City, working with community-based organizations and neighbors, set up what they call overdose prevention sites. And I've said this in many debates. One of the first things that I would tackle as mayor is making sure that over 800 of the residents of San Francisco were not dying on the streets. And surprisingly, and going back to the conversation about housing first, over 65% of them had a home over their head, had a home address. So we have to get people off the streets, save their lives first. We can do that with overdose prevention, done in the right way with a medical professional supervising them. But we also need abstinence-based housing. And again, I did that a few years ago in the city, and we want to expand more of those opportunities. And then we have partners like the Salvation Army that have an entire plan to get people into true recovery. We can do the whole gamut. We can have a whole continuum of it. But if we're really serious about getting people and saving their lives, we got to get them off the streets in a supervised way to make sure they're not dying.
Supervisor Peskin, philosophically, is it the city's responsibility to provide shelter to everyone on its streets, regardless of whether they've lived here for 10 years or 10 days? And what is the consequence if the city chooses not to?
You know, some candidates on this stage are strong advocates for sweeps. I can tell you, I have never received more complaints than since Mayor Breed started these sweeps a month ago, because sweeps don't solve the problem. They just move homeless people from one neighborhood to another. And Mayor Breed, and I'm sorry she's not here, has had 6 years to solve this problem. And we have more homeless people on our streets today than when she started. And for those of the candidates who are doubling down on her failed strategies, they're already been shown to be ineffective. I have a comprehensive plan on homelessness. It's called From Crisis to Care. I developed it with experts in the field. It is entirely implementable, and I'd like to outline the points. Systemic management reform, with an inspector general to root out corruption and to make efficiencies amongst the 9 city departments and 248 service providers. A regional approach to treatment, refurbishing unused and underutilized state facilities that have been vacant since the days of Governor Ronald Reagan, utilizing our Prop 1 dollars. Preventing additional homelessness by making sure that we stop evictions and build more affordable housing. And yes, standing up shelter beds, as I have done in my district, because New York has shelter for 95% of its homeless population. We only have shelter for 47%. And providing a focused, concentrated effort to find housing for the 1,800 San Francisco Unified School District children who are currently unhoused. This plan is on my website. I encourage you to read it. This is one of the most important issues in this race, and I believe that I have the best path forward.
And if I could ask a quick follow-up and pivot to the fentanyl epidemic, Do you believe the city needs to revise or embrace its sanctuary policies to help facilitate the deportation of people either accused or convicted of dealing fentanyl in San Francisco?
So I think that San Francisco's sanctuary city policy has actually made San Francisco safer. I believe that that is the view of every candidate on this stage and every member of the Board of Supervisors. We want people to report crime. It makes San Francisco safer.
Former interim Mayor Farrell, you've promised to clear all the tent encampments within your first 6 months in office, but when the city doesn't have enough shelter beds and can't build enough supportive housing quickly, what should happen to the thousands of people who are being shuffled around the streets after their tents are taken away? Where should they go? And if they don't leave, should they go to jail?
Well, let's set the stage of where we are right now as the city of San Francisco. Mayor Breed has completely failed our city in terms of the homeless situation on our streets. Until a few months ago, she was completely absent on the issue. And now since grants passed, we have haphazard tent clearing, we have busing people out of town, which is probably one of the worst ideas the city's ever encountered. Mayor Breed really wants to get into busing wars with the governors of the southern border states and get into a competition with them. We're gonna lose that battle.
That's for sure.
As Supervisor Safai said, Project Homer Bound was a program that worked for years inside of the city government. When I was budget chair, we did a study on it. 70% of these people a year later were housed. It was a radical success, and I quadrupled the budget for that program, such that when I left office as mayor in 2018, we were sending over 100 people home a month to great success. We need to replicate that. And yes, let me be clear, when I was mayor, I cleared out all the large tent encampments in San Francisco, and I will do it again. But the difference between Mayor Breed right now, haphazard, one-off approach, is the fact that we did it consistently. We treated people with compassion and respect, offered them shelter and housing, but if they said no, we took their tents away. Because I believe the sidewalks of San Francisco belong to everybody. They belong to young families, they belong to the elderly, not to people who choose to come to San Francisco to pitch a tent and think they could be there for as long as they want. That is not the future of San Francisco under my administration. I've done it before, we were consistent with it, and I will do it again as mayor. For homeless in particular, we're going to declare a fentanyl state of emergency. We're going to get additional law enforcement help from the state and the feds to combat that issue. And we're going to stand up a 24/7 centralized intake center. Massive amount of additional shelter capacity, but most importantly, connecting with services so we can get people off the streets and hopefully save their lives. Mayor Breed's approach is not working. Record number of people are dying on our streets every single year. Once again, we need to turn the page to a different chapter of San Francisco.
If I may follow up, once you take away their tents, and if there are no shelters, could they go to jail? Should they be arrested?
I don't believe in arresting people simply because they are sleeping on the streets of San Francisco. We can do it differently. We do it exactly as we did it when I was mayor. We have enough shelter beds. We will stand up more of them. But if they say no to shelter, we take their tents away. And sure, the first time did they move around the corner and have complaints just like what's happening with Mayor Breed. But after a second, a third, and a fourth encounter, we saw a much higher conversion into shelter. And you know what? Some people left the city of San Francisco because we made it inconvenient to sleep on the streets for as long as they wish. That is the right policy for the city of San Francisco. We want to get people to shelter or housing, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be a fierce defender of our neighborhoods and make sure the quality of life for all San Francisco residents is what I look out for.
Mr. Lurie, many voters believe San Francisco has an issue of trying to spend their way out of problems. As the founder of the nonprofit Tipping Point is well documented, your organization has spent close to $100 million with the goal of cutting chronic homelessness in half in 2017, only to see the number of homeless people grow. Was that money well spent, and how might you spend that money different if you become mayor?
I appreciate the question, and I want to start by saying I drove my kids to school this morning, and we encountered a man running into oncoming traffic. We had to stop in the middle of Gough Street. I took my kids to school in June last year, and my son, who is 10 years old, looked over and saw two people. One was doing drugs and one was slumped over, and he asked me the question, are they on meth or fentanyl? We have a serious problem in this city. This mayor has failed to address it. At Tipping Point, I am proud of taking on an audacious goal. We have housed over 40,000 people since 2015. We've prevented thousands more from falling into homelessness. We built a building on Bryant Street, a 100% affordable housing building. We did it in 3 years and for $377,000 a unit using good paying union labor, compared to, on average, it takes 7 years and $1.2 million to build affordable housing. I've also built shelter at 33 Goff Street, 78 units. It cost us $34,000 a unit to do so. It's fully staffed and fully housing people right now because it's safe and it's dignified shelter, which we need more of. And simply put, what we see from the City Hall insiders is they took that plan, they ran with it, they're building shelter, it costs $113,000. The City Hall insiders are running against this mayor has completely failed on this issue. I've had great success on it. By no means have we solved our problems. But I'm the only one that has demonstrated measurable results, held nonprofits accountable, cut funding to groups when they haven't performed, and redirected resources to high-performing organizations.
I have a quick little follow-up. You had mentioned fentanyl. In an op-ed in San Francisco Examiner, your solution to crime and safety focused on cracking down on those who sell drugs by using a, quote, find my iPhone approach to tracking drug dealers. As mayor, what exactly does that mean and how would you implement that?
It means that if you are arrested in the Tenderloin or in Soma, the first time I want to work with our DA, I want to work with the judges, and I want them to put an ankle monitor on somebody as a condition of their pre-trial release. First time. People say, oh, well, you put ankle monitors on people now. No, you do it after someone fails to show up for a court case, or you do it after a third or fourth arrest. When I am mayor, starting in January, I am going to stand on the City Hall steps every single day, and I'm going to tell people, you do not come to San Francisco to deal drugs. You don't come here to do drugs, and you don't come here to sleep on our streets.
Thank you very much. Let's go back to Juliet in studio for our next topic.
A look at the reservation list ahead of another night of business at his downtown restaurant, Perbaco.
It's looking pretty good there.
Umberto Jabin will take the wins wherever he can.
We have a good amount of prevalence. At the moment, at least, it definitely is what has to say in business.
Like many downtown business owners navigating San Francisco's slow, pandemic-induced economic recovery, he's had to make some tough decisions. That included closing his other restaurant just 2 doors down, Barbaco.
It wasn't feasible anymore. It wasn't sustainable.
At the start of 2020, the office vacancy rate was at 6%. The start of 2024, 32% and climbing.
We need people like they were here before.
But to Julian Prince Dash, the founder of Holy Stitch, a denim factory, shop, and design school on Market Street, the vacancies mean opportunity.
This is the time for someone like me to be able to affect change.
Patience and creativity are critical in his line of work, and he says they're applicable in the bigger picture of San Francisco finding its next iteration.
People need to be patient. What do you expect? Overnight problems lead to solutions. So I don't even think that the place is getting worse because I see it get better every single day. Become an asset to the city, and I think that you'll not be enamored with the problems, but the solutions.
Despite the challenges, Jabin is betting on the city, as he did 20 years ago.
If there is one city that can bounce back, it's San Francisco.
How that future will happen, however, remains unclear.
Supervisor Pesca, you've long championed neighborhood preservation and low-income housing over market-rate development. I know that you will tell us that you have voted to approve more units of housing than anyone else on this stage. But how, as mayor, will you attract developers to convert the empty office buildings that surround us here to much-needed housing and bring downtown San Francisco back to life and do it quickly?
Listen, downtown economic recovery is critical, but as you said, Doug, the well-being of our neighborhood commercial areas is equally important. Let me start with downtown. I know downtown. I worked downtown for many years, and I've represented downtown for most of the last quarter of a century, in good times and in tough times. And my opponents talk about downtown. I'm actually already doing the work to help downtown recover. I led the way on passing legislation to ease converting vacant office buildings to housing, and subsequently I passed legislation to help finance those conversions. And I'm working to bring things downtown that downtown really needs to be a thriving neighborhood that it's never had, like parks and libraries and arts and culture. But at the same time, I'm very worried about the mayor's upzoning plans for our neighborhood commercial corridors that would impact neighborhoods all over this city, on Clement, on Irving, on Chestnut, on 24th Street in Noe Valley. It would be disastrous for our neighborhoods, and we're already seeing some of the impacts. We just saw it on Upper Fillmore Street. I mean, imagine what it would be like if you went out and your favorite cafe and your bakery and your grocery store were closed. And that's exactly what is happening. So as mayor, yes, I will continue to work to help downtown recover, but I will also fight to make sure that our neighborhood commercial areas are not destroyed.
Meanwhile, there are companies leaving San Francisco, as we know. They're going to the suburbs, they're moving to Texas. So at the same time, as you try to, produce more housing downtown, how will you induce companies that are here now to stay and entice more to come?
So I am the author of Proposition M on this November's ballot that restructures San Francisco's business tax law precisely to retain businesses, giving relief to 2,600 small businesses, as well as businesses at the top that we want to make sure do not leave, like Salesforce and other similarly situated businesses. And so we did that hard work, and it is going to enable hundreds of businesses to stay. And our tax laws needed to change phenomenally in the post-COVID period, and we did that work, and I'm proud that it has been endorsed by the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, Advance SF, and small businesses as well.
Former interim mayor Mark Farrell, we have seen your renderings what your reimagined downtown or waterfront could look like under a 20-year plan. One of your opponents said it looks like a ChatGPT generated content. Why would it take so long to transform downtown? And as mayor, what would you do to make downtown a thriving neighborhood in the first year of your administration?
So again, let's set the stage here. I'm the biggest cheerleader for our city of San Francisco. I'm lucky enough to be born and raised here. My wife Liz and I are raising our 3 children here. This is home. But I also think if we want a mayor who's going to lead the city forward, to make a sustainable difference on every topic in our city, we have to be realistic about where we sit today. And today, San Francisco ranks dead last in economic recovery across the entire United States post-COVID. Downtown vacancy rates are pushing 40%. This is scary, especially for those of us who've been around here for a while. So we need to be incredibly proactive out of City Hall. First of all, we have to fundamentally focus on the issues and the core issues of public safety and street conditions. It's the reason conventions left San Francisco. We never lost our natural beauty, lost amazing neighborhoods like Chinatown adjacent to our convention center that people love to visit. It's because people were getting assaulted from their hotel on the way to the convention center and back and forth. And finally, CEOs pulled ripcord and went to Vegas instead. We focus on those core issues. Conventions come back to San Francisco that feed our restaurants and our hotels downtown year-round. Then we have to get aggressive with tax incentives to bring employers back to the downtown and South of Market core. We did it in the 2010s in the mid-market area to great success. That neighborhood was starting to thrive once again, and we kept companies in town. We need to do that again. Then we have to focus on the long-term conversion from commercial to residential. Not the 10 buildings we talk about today. We have to get bigger and bolder as a city on so many levels, and this in particular. Let's allow these Class B and Class C buildings downtown to demo. Let's massively upzone downtown and South of Market, commit to tax increment vehicles so we can actually get developers investing in San Francisco again, people back to work, and build for the future of San Francisco. And lastly, because you mentioned it, building a brand new park at the foot of Market Street. As we think about people coming to San Francisco for the first time at the Ferry Building, a welcome mat to our city, instead of broken tile street behavior and a fountain that hasn't dripped water since I was born. We need to do different, we need to do better, and we can make downtown a shining example of the future of our city, as opposed to the problem that it is today.
That park would also be bordered by Market Street. You proposed opening Market Street to traffic. How do you believe that was going to help downtown recovery?
Very specifically, I propose that we open up Market Street to ride sharing. Because the one thing, if you've been around San Francisco for a long time, is that what's scary about Market Street today, especially from the San Francisco Center to the Ferry Building, is how many empty storefronts there are. The lack of vibrancy downtown. Nobody comes downtown anymore. And these public safety incidents, like the incident the other weekend on Union Square, does not help. We have to be honest about that. So to me, allowing rideshare vehicles to come downtown on Market Street is just increasing throughput. Let's get people downtown. Let's make it easy for them to shop, easy for them to patronize stores and restaurants downtown. We need to do everything we can in our power to enable that, and that is exactly what that proposal achieves.
Okay, Mr. Gloria, as part of your downtown revitalization plan, you proposed a 10-year property tax incentive for companies that lease new office space or retail space downtown. Given this projected deficits that the city is facing, how can it afford this program?
You can't afford not to. Empty office buildings don't bring in any revenue, so we need to fill those buildings. What we really need to do downtown is we have to address public safety first and foremost. I did a walk around Union Square with the top commander leading the police force, actually just 3 days before Ricky Pearsall was shot. I applaud SFPD for their quick response. I applaud SF General, the nurses and the doctors there that saved his life. And thankfully, he's going to be okay. But that was a tragic incident that just gave us yet another black eye. We need to streamline permitting. We need to make it easier for small businesses to come in and take over existing space. And then we're all saying that we need to transform what we do downtown. Whether it's arts and culture. I know Julian, who you featured just now, I mean, we have to get creative. Let's have more live workspace. Let's have more restaurants. Let's build more housing downtown. Let's get a university to, at least if they're not gonna open, let's get their kids to live in some of these buildings. Let's lead again on climate change. Let's draw in change makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators when it comes to that. We used to lead on climate. We've lost that to New York and to Austin and to Miami. We need to do better.
Well, you know, your opponents regularly point out that you lack experience in city government. Much of what you just described and is outlined in your plans for San Francisco would require the support of the legislative body of San Francisco. How would you work with legislators to actually implement the plans that you've laid out?
I will put my track record of executive management experience up against anybody I'm running against. I brought a global sporting event in Super Bowl 50 to San Francisco, to the Bay Area, generated over $250 million in economic revenue to our city and to our region. I worked with Mayor Liccardo in San Jose, Mayor Schaff in Oakland, and of course Mayor Lee and all the department heads to pull that event off. I talked about getting housing built earlier tonight. One union was not happy with this project. They said over their dead body would it get built. I went around, worked with supervisors, got a unanimous vote at the Board of Supervisors to get that housing built. I have a track record of holding people accountable, delivering measurable results, and I want to do that as your next mayor.
Supervisor Safai, you all want to reimagine the financial district, transform it into a neighborhood. You go to New York, you go to Chicago, their downtown cores are thriving. They're bustling with tourists, people going to restaurants. They've reimagined their central waterways. What specifically has Mayor Breed done wrong at City Hall that has kept San Francisco from following suit that you would do differently? Specifically, what would you do that she hasn't done?
Well, unfortunately, Mayor Breed lacks vision. And that's one of the reasons why I think the voters of San Francisco are going to be asking for change this November. A lot of it has been talked about a little bit in platitudes, but let me get very specific. One of the things, and we convened a working group 2 years ago with property owners, large property owners, large companies, frontline workers, and a number of different aspects of the legislative branch, Office of Economic Development, and the private sector. And what we heard first and foremost is people, if we want them to come back downtown and populate the 40 million square feet of empty office space, folks need to see that the streets are clean and it's safe. So first thing I would do, and I worked for Public Works, I would make that department a true 24-hour department. Every major city you go to in the world, world-class city, has people cleaning the streets on a 24-hour basis. We do it on a kind of a skeleton crew in the evening. I would up that and make that more robust. Secondly, I talked a little bit about it. I passed a citywide community policing plan in January. It's one of the reasons why I would point to that we need to change leadership in the police department. We need someone that's going to fully embrace that, implement that, and get the different stations to put officers out on the street. And we saw how effective it was when Ricky Purcell was shot. An officer was there within minutes, if not seconds, to save his life. But let's take a step back for a second. We're also forgetting to talk about the frontline workers. I was with a roundtable of frontline workers this afternoon, along with business managers and operators of those businesses, and they talked about incentives for their businesses, waiving fees, making it more easy for workers to get there. And then, of course, you referenced, I passed legislation to bring universities into the downtown. We can do that. Phoenix, Arizona did it 18 years ago. Fast forward, $6.5 billion of revenue have been generated. They've gotten over 12,000 students, not just studying, but living, thriving, and spending money in the downtown, and it's been a major catalyst. We have to do that, and we have to do that aggressively, and we have the historic opportunity with property being at a historic low. We can buy those properties and bring universities into the downtown.
We all know how long it takes to get anything done in San Francisco, so how specifically do you turn a grid of skyscrapers into a livable neighborhood, like San Francisco's other neighborhoods, that coexists with corporations and companies and office workers, which is not true in some of those other neighborhoods?
You know, when I worked for Gavin Newsom 20 years ago, I went on a 4-city tour. Because one of the things that Gavin emphasized was looking at best practices around the country. Went to LA, San Diego, New York, and Boston. And every single one of those cities, I came in and I said, I'm here to steal your ideas and bring it back to San Francisco. One of the ones we did was we got a small business facade improvement program, helping small businesses. But the other one that we didn't do, unfortunately, they had a dedicated team to office to residential conversion. Fast forward 20 years, they have converted thousands and thousands of units into livable space. We can do that. We need a dedicated team. I would do that day one. But also, look at what San Jose did. Just a month and a half ago, it took them 6 months to convert an old hotel into student dormitory housing. If the will is there and the leadership is there, we can get it done very quickly, and it will transform our downtown and give the confidence for those to come back into the downtown, and I think that's what's been missing.
Okay, let's go back to Juliet in studio for our next topic.
Jesse Harris is living off retirement savings, including Social Security and a pension. He's a licensed general contractor, picking up jobs wherever and whenever he can.
I have to do this job because I don't even make enough money in my retirement to pay my rent.
A divorce 4 years ago forced him to move back to San Francisco, where he was born and raised. He's been on a long wait list for affordable housing.
Affordable. I'm working $2,500, $3,000, but $4,000. I just can't afford that.
The 66-year-old is clinging to hope that he'll have a better chance in a housing lottery or move up the wait list. Karen Nemsick is Director of Housing Justice at United Way Bay Area.
We see a really huge gap between wages going up at a very low level and rents speeding up.
Nemsick defines affordable housing as tenants paying a maximum of 30% of their income on housing, whether you're a teacher, retired general contractor, or firefighter.
Sometimes things are greater than yourself. You're gonna make it happen, and I'm hoping these one of those times.
That attitude is admirable, but how long he can stay afloat is uncertain.
Okay, former interim mayor Farrell. If Proposition 33 passes this November, it would repeal the Costa-Hawkins Rental Act, which limits city's ability to implement rent control. If Prop 33 passes, what should the city do? Would you support expanding rent control?
No, that's the last thing we should do right now. To me, the way to increase affordable housing is to simply build more housing across San Francisco. And this mayor, Mayor Breed, has failed at building new housing across our city. For me, this is personal now. Our oldest daughter, Madison, she's out in college in Boston right now as a freshman, 3 weeks in, and I believe looking on the live stream, so hi, Madison. I don't want her to move home to San Francisco in 4 years. But in order for her to do that, our city has to change, and chief among that has to be affordable from a housing perspective. We're under a state mandate to build approximately 10,000 units a year. Last year we built 2,000 units, and this year we're on pace to build 400. That is not success, that is failure. I have always been incredibly pro-housing inside of City Hall. To me, it's upzoning, it's legislation, and it's mayoral directives to our planning department to make sure that we streamline housing throughout the city of San Francisco. My track record inside of City Hall is a track record of success. As a supervisor, built infill housing within District 2. Also started the projects that will build now over 1,000 units of new housing very close to where we live. CPMC's old hospital on California, UCSF's Laurel Heights site, and also the Lucky Penny site on Geary and Masonic. I've always been incredibly pro-housing inside of City Hall, and I will be going forward as mayor next year. But we can't leave this topic, I can't leave this topic without calling out one of my opponents here, Mr. Lurie, and his claims around the one project that emanated from his $100 million fundraising effort for homelessness, this 833 Bryant project. Let's be clear about this. It's articulated that it only costs a few $100s a square foot to build, but he's not including the land costs. That's deceiving the voters of San Francisco. 3 years to build, he's not talking about permitting. That was a 5-year project. Under my administration, anything that long that takes 5 years, you're gonna get fired in my administration. And he talks about holding people accountable. What about holding himself and tipping point accountable? There are 13 different violations in the Department of Building Inspection. Someone was electrocuted in that building. It was flooded, there's dirty
Okay,
water.
that's your time. Mr. Rory, I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
I mean, Mark has got to be the last person who should be giving a lecture on accountability. The city controller actually highlighted your 2011 law to decentralize nonprofit reporting as a key reason that corruption has flourished. Now, let me just be very clear, because he just said something that is just not true. It was 3 years from the time we bought the project to the time we opened the first doors.
Okay, and former interim Mayor Mark Farrell again, as a follow-up, you mentioned upzoning. I'd love to hear you articulate in what parts of the city you think there should be more density.
I think we need to build more housing and have more density in every single neighborhood in San Francisco. However, I do not subscribe to Mayor Breed's plan to massively upzone every single neighborhood. I believe we can do it programmatically to meet and exceed our state mandated goals. The massive opportunity is in the downtown area and South Market areas to massively upzone this part of San Francisco, to take advantage of the disaster that downtown is today and build for the future. Let's not waste this opportunity. But we have to build in every neighborhood, along transit corridors in particular. We have to support legislation like Supervisor Mandelman's 4 to 6plex legislation, Supervisor Engardio's corner lot legislation. Build more form-based density. We can do it in every neighborhood. We can do it in a smart manner where we retain neighborhoods and the beauty and the diversity that is San Francisco.
Mr. Lurie, piggybacking on that question, San Francisco is notoriously slow at approving permits and in building things. Everyone here will tell us they're going to streamline and accelerate that. And now, as we said, under, well, we haven't brought up this one, but under SB 423, it should speed up. But how do you ensure as mayor that San Francisco both meets that state mandate for building new units and preserves its neighborhood charm, doesn't run roughshod over the neighborhood interests?
What is amazing to me is that you are correct. Everybody on this stage and the mayor talks about building more housing and how that the bureaucracy stymies them. But let's all remember, they have built this bureaucracy. Then they exploit it, and then they tell you that they're the only ones that can fix it. The White House, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden just smacked down our city, saying it is the longest in the country to get through just permitting, 33 months. That's absurd. That's why we have an affordability crisis. That's why I'm proud of my project, because we got streamlined permitting. We got it done in 3 years for $377,000 a unit, and we need to do more of it. Finally, the city has taken us up on it, and they're building senior housing, 135 units of senior housing out on Cesar Chavez and Valencia Street. It's going to be affordable. This model is replicable. Let's do it all over this city. Let's do it downtown. Let's do it at Candlestick Point. We have labor and business and neighborhood groups agreeing on Stonestown and 3,000 new units there. SF State is going to be building more housing for their teachers, which the neighborhood all agrees on. We just built and finished the Shirley Chisholm project out in the Sunset, and the neighborhood agreed on it. 135 units of housing for our teachers. There were 900 teachers that applied for it. Guess how long it took that building to get built? 7 years. That is not what it's going to take. I have delivered once, and I will deliver again.
I want to ask you two things. First of all, you responded to former interim Mayor Farrell on the length of the project, right, but not to the allegations about violations and electrocution, etc. I'd like to give you a little bit to respond to that. And second of all, if Prop 33 passes, would you also favor expanding rent control or not?
Listen, we all live in apartments or condos or rental properties, and things go wrong. 145 unit building over 3 or 4 years now, 13 issues. I honestly have no idea what he's talking about in terms of electric. I mean, this guy, I mean, it's amazing what he's doing right now.
And on Prop 33, if it passes?
I do not support expanding rent control. We need to keep rent control as is, keep people here. It has done really good work, but expanding it at this time will prevent us from getting more housing built.
And former interim Mayor Farrell, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond to what you just said.
I don't think he said anything about me. Look, at the end of the day, you know, from my perspective, experience matters in this race. Competence matters in this race. And a strong vision for San Francisco matters in this race. I'm the only one on the stage that has the experience of being mayor before. I've sat in that seat. Competence matters. When I was mayor, our city was in a much different place than it is today. And a strong vision for San Francisco matters. I agree. This mayor right now, Mayor Breed, has no vision for the future of San Francisco. What I offer is holistically different and a bright vision for the future of San Francisco.
Can I just respond, because I didn't say anything about him personally. And what we're here tonight to talk about is who is going to be the best person to serve as your next mayor. And it's not about anybody on this stage, it's not about our mayor even. It's about the people of San Francisco. And they deserve better than they're getting right now.
Supervisor Safadi, finding a San Francisco native who still lives in San Francisco seems to be harder and harder to find. We call them unicorns. As San Francisco becomes more expensive to live in, we've seen our neighborhoods become regentrified. As local and San Francisco natives can no longer afford to live in the city where they were born or grew up. As mayor, how would you make sure people of all incomes, including working families, not just wealthy, can afford to live, rent, or even buy a home here in this city?
You know what, you basically articulated the theme of my campaign. The reason I'm running is because you shouldn't have to be rich to live in San Francisco. I'm running to represent all San Franciscans. And for the past 8 years, the good people of the Excelsior, District 11, and Outer Mission, Lakeview, those are the people that I have fought for every single day. 30, 40 years ago, the janitors that I worked with in this building, that clean these buildings all downtown, they could buy a home in San Francisco on a janitor's salary for a $100,000 home, $200,000 home. Today, those homes are going for $2 million. The homes are out of reach. So many of the people that live in my district are house rich but cash poor. Same thing I was saying earlier about the frontline workers and small business owners that I was meeting with today. They talked about affordability. And that was really what the question was before all the back and forth. It was, how are we going to make San Francisco more affordable? There are 40,000 units in the pipeline right now, entitled, ready to be built. So I passed legislation on Tuesday that would create financing to get them unstuck and built, to lower the transfer tax so we can use union pension money to build affordable on-site and build more housing. The one thing, and I got to take a lot of umbrage with what Daniel Lurie said, and this is the story that he's not telling you. That site that he keeps referring to, they use modular housing. They build it off-site, and they use barely above minimum wage. The union workers that would be building that, the working families that are being pushed out of this city every single day, they didn't get to be on that job. And why there were problems on that job was because the modular housing was so poorly built. The reason that only one was built under the money that he spent is because it's not replicable. What is being replicated now is a standard design, creative financing, but not the modular housing that he used on his site, that cut working families and workers out. So if we want to keep working families in this city, for the housing that they built, they should be able to live in it.
Mr. Lurie, 30 seconds to respond.
It's 100% union made. The carpenters made it. It was modular. This was audacious. It was innovative. And 13 other unions actually finished the job. And so, you know, once again, what we see going on here is the insider. It's like a tag team coming after the person that is shining the light on their records, exposing them, showing you all that they have built this system. Then they exploit it, but apparently they're the only ones that can fix it.
And a follow-up to Supervisor Safadi, what is your stand on
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah, because what I would say is, again, he's leading out. They chose not to use the modular on the site on Cesar Chavez.
That's true.
Specifically,
Stick
because it's not replicable.
But the model
And the one
is.
that they used on Treasure Island, the ceilings fell through. We had to spend additional millions of dollars. I sat on the budget committee to fix those units because they were so poorly built. That's not being replicated in San Francisco. That's not something that's going to help working families, and that's why he only built one
The
project.
second one is being built using the same type of accountable leadership right from the start, where you get the architecture firm, you get the contractors, you get the builders up front working together. Then you set a deadline and you meet that deadline. We did that. We had a deadline of 3 years and under $400,000 a unit. We got it done. And they are actually using the exact model of what we're doing. It's not modular, it's stick built, and we're excited. And guess what? This one's going to cost $577,000 a unit compared to $1.2 million for other projects. So I am proud of my record on this.
Supervisor Peskin, we just had a whole argument about housing and you were not mentioned once. I will ask, do you believe in the fundamental economics of supply and demand when it comes to housing, and that adding new units, whether they're market rate or affordable, will increase the housing availability and affordability for everyone?
Folks, I think we need to reject the narrative of developers and real estate speculators. And they have this narrative, look, they'll tell you I am the worst, but I am actually the best candidate on this stage to build the affordable housing that San Francisco needs. And let me say this, I have, and Doug said this, have voted to approve over 100,000 homes in the city, more than everybody else on this stage combined, including Mayor Brady, who is not here this evening. But I did it by working with neighborhoods, not against them. In my own district, we've built every kind of housing: homeless shelters, permanent supportive housing, market rate housing. And I've never, not once, voted against affordable housing. And to answer the earlier question, I am the only candidate on this stage who supports expanding rent control to stabilize our communities. And unlike my opponents, I have an actual plan to build the middle-income affordable housing that San Francisco so desperately needs. Many people don't know, but there are over 70,000 shovel-ready, fully approved homes in our pipeline that aren't being built because interest rates are too high. In my plan, because the city will provide tax-exempt, lower-cost interest, we'll finally start building those middle-income affordable homes. But at the same time, Adam, while we're talking about housing, I need to go back to what so many San Franciscans are rightfully concerned about, which is the mayor's massive upzoning plans. And my opponents, Mr. Lurie and Mr. Farrell, say one thing one week and one thing the next week. But it is very clear to me that their campaigns are being supported by the exact speculators who are pushing this upzoning. So let me be clear, I will protect our neighborhoods. That is what I've done my entire career, and I know that San Francisco can build the affordable housing that we need without turning Ocean Beach into Miami Beach.
To be clear, Mayor Bree did not invent upzoning, and it's a fundamental component of the housing element. New homes have to be put somewhere in San Francisco. Where do you believe they need to be placed?
I have the over 100,000 units that I voted to approve, we did with neighborhoods, not against neighborhoods. We did that in the Bayview Hunters Point Shipyard Plan. We did that in the Eastern Neighborhood Plan. We did that in the Central and Western Soma plans. We did that at the Rincon Hill Plan. And we included the amenities that make neighborhoods great. And I brought people together, neighborhoods, developers, the planning department, and exhibited that leadership to have the density that we need, preserve things that needed to be preserved, give protections to our small businesses, and that is exactly what real leadership is. This is not an either or, Mr. Shanks. And there have been instances where we need to stand up and protect certain things. I am very proud that when a developer wanted to demolish the San Francisco flower market, the second largest wholesale flower market in America, that I said no unless they found a new location. And in a month, the San Francisco flower market, an over 100-year-old institution that supports thousands of jobs, will open its new location at 16th and Mississippi. That's leadership.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's go back to Juliet in studio.
And a lot here.
Why would we like? Yeah, no, it feels like 2 minutes. Yeah. How long is it?
Supervisor Prescott did call out both Mr. Lurie and former Interim Mayor Farrell by name in that last round, and didn't pick them up to respond. So we want to give Mr. Lurie 30 seconds, then Mr. Farrell 30 seconds, Mr. Lurie, if you want to respond to what Mr. Prescott said.
Yeah, I'm just starting to feel special that they keep calling me out. I haven't said one thing one week and one thing the other. I have been very clear that we need more affordable housing for our nurses, for our teachers, for our firefighters, for our creative class. All over this city, I believe that we need to build along commercial corridors, 6 to 8 story, where it makes sense. I've said that everywhere.
Former Interim Mayor Farrell, you also have 30 seconds.
And again, I'll put my track record of being incredibly pro-housing inside of City Hall up against anybody else. And the reality is, under Mayor Breed, our city has failed to build enough housing. Again, last year, we only built 2,000 units. This year, we're gonna build 400 units. And as of, I think, about a month and a half ago, our planning department had only approved 16 new units in our city. Not 1,600, 16,000, 16. We need a mayor who's gonna treat it differently. Let's get away from ideology, YIMBY, NIMBY, progressive, moderate. Let's focus on results. Let's build more housing for the future of San Francisco. That's what you get when I am mayor.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. That's all for the direct questions. Each campaign now has 90 seconds to address the voters. Again, they drew lots to decide who will go first. We'll begin with Mr. Lurie. Mr. Lurie, this comes from one of our viewers, Brittany from the Sunset. How will you help local business owners continue to thrive in the city with the current landscape of break-ins? Will you get assistance for them when you become mayor?
You know, we just opened a space on 9th and Irving, and we got graffiti. And within 24 hours, the city's efficient on this front. They put a tag on us and said that we owed money. This administration and everybody who is built up this system has made it nearly impossible to run a small business. It's almost like they are looked at as a fee, a revenue source, instead of a source of pride, a source of envy for others, and what will draw tourism and shoppers. I'll go back to, we need to make sure that we have a fully staffed police department. I want our police officers out on foot patrol. I want them out responding and being able to prevent and deter crime whenever possible. Right now, our police officers, 80% of their calls, and I've done 7 ride-alongs, 80% of their calls are for mental health and drug crises calls. We need to get them off of that. We need trained clinicians being the first point of contact. Not every interaction on our street needs to be with somebody with a badge and a gun. So then that allows police officers to get to know the merchants and protect them. That's what we need to do for our small business, make them feel safe again.
Supervisor Safai, this question comes to us from Tom from Golden Gate Heights. What efforts would you undertake to promote tourism in San Francisco? For example, how would you get national and international coverage of special events in San Francisco, like music festivals and street fairs?
So actually, one of the things that I didn't get to talk about in terms of my downtown revitalization plan, but it's also a way to market the city and bring San Francisco back into the forefront. One of the things that we've let slip away under this mayor is utilizing Hollywood the way we did in the past. If you think about all of the great movies that were shot in our city, you think of all the different TV shows and commercials that were shot in our city, it's one of the best ways to advertise and promote San Francisco in a positive way. And unfortunately, we had post-production space on Treasure Island. That's now pickleball courts. And if we had, and that's for real, that's not a joke, if we have 100,000 square feet with 40-foot ceilings and parking, we can bring Hollywood back to San Francisco. And it'll be a way to promote us in a phenomenal way that no marketing campaign would ever do. We have phenomenal festivals. We're gonna have the All-Star Game here next year. We're fighting for the Super Bowl again. Maybe Daniel Lurie can share that one more time. And then again, we will be doing everything we can to put San Francisco back on the map in a positive way.
Supervisor Peskin, Jamie in Laurel Heights, another one of our viewers, would like to know whether you think Market Street should be completely reopened to cars to help provide businesses along that corridor, and if not, why not?
So, Jamie, thank you for that question. First of all, I think that having robust public transit is one of the great equalizers in San Francisco, and I'm proud of my record working not only to make San Francisco safer for pedestrians with many road diet improvements, but also sticking up for the funding to allow the SFMTA to do that. I was the author of Proposition D, which charges a tax on Uber and Lyft, and now on Waymo and Cruise to fund those improvements. So we need to have a safe city, and we also have to have a robust public transit system. I was actually for bike lanes in this city 25 years ago at their infancy. But I do not believe that opening Market Street to cars is going to be an improvement. There are many, many opportunities for downtown, things that I'm already working on, but opening Market Street to cars is a step backwards.
And former interim Mayor Farrell, this question comes from Constance from Haight-Ashbury. She says, I understand the goal of Vision Zero, but reality is that a lot of people also need to use their cars. It seems that SF is intent on creating traffic chaos. At what point will the city balance functional traffic flow with safety?
So thank you for that question, and I couldn't agree with the sentiment behind it more. Why I have called for a new head of our MTA moving forward in San Francisco. Look, I believe in our transit first policy here in our city. The next person, we can't afford to have that person move here with their own car and drive that car around. Our roads would be clogged more than they are today. We need more protected bike lanes around the city of San Francisco. But the MTA has lost all common sense. We are doing projects in neighborhoods like Terraville in the Outer Sunset, like what's happened in West Portal, like Valencia with the bike lanes, without even thinking about the impact on small businesses, on people that need to use their vehicles to get around the city of San Francisco. I think about our family. We have bicycles. We walk when we can to our local commercial corridors, but we also have vehicles. And the reason we do is because I'm raising 3 kids in San Francisco. And they're in different parts of the city with their school, with their sporting events. And I don't think San Francisco should make people that need to drive their cars somehow feel ashamed to do so. We need to have a balanced approach inside of City Hall. We need to have a balanced approach from MTA. That does not exist today. When I become mayor, we bring that back to San Francisco.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for this very lively debate. We now give you a chance for closing statements. Once again, we drew the lots to decide who would go first. We begin with Mr. Lurie.
Well, listen, thank you all, thank you CBS and the Examiner for having us. My wife is here tonight, and we talk about the values that we want to instill in our two children. And it's about kindness, and it's about empathy, and it's about listening. Something that our elected leaders simply have forgotten to do. What we have talked about tonight is there are so many things done to community and not with community. I have a proven track record of getting big things done, doing things in an innovative way. I built one of the largest, most innovative poverty-fighting organizations in this country. Mayor Ed Lee asked me to chair the bid to bring Super Bowl 50 here, and we did that successfully, and now we have the NBA All-Star game coming in 2025. We do have the Super Bowl coming in 2026. We have FIFA World Cup, 6 games coming, $1.4 billion of economic revenue. So proud to be playing a role in that. We're at a moment. This city is going to rise again, but it needs new leadership, it needs accountable leadership, and we need to break with the old, and we need someone new. I hope to have your vote this November.
Supervisor Peskin.
We've heard some pretty stark differences amongst the candidates this evening. I will fight to protect elderly renters from eviction. My opponents will not. I am a champion of affordable housing. They prefer luxury housing. I support the economic recovery of all of our neighborhoods. They just talk about downtown. I have a comprehensive homeless strategy. They keep talking about sweeps, which are simply ineffective. And when it comes to neighborhoods, I have spent my entire career fighting for neighborhoods. My opponents are interested in policies that will be ruinous for them. I'm a grassroots candidate with over 3,000 contributions from teachers, nurses, artists, and that is exactly who I will fight for. My opponents are mostly supported by billionaires, and I imagine that's what they will fight for. But the biggest difference between me and my opponents is our vision for the future of San Francisco. I will fight for a future that is affordable to all of us, and I hope you will join.
Supervisor Safaidi.
Thank you. Just want to start off by saying I don't have any billionaire backers at Aaron, so let's just be clear on that. But I want you to walk away from this debate tonight and ask yourself one central question. Who has the vision, experience, and track record to fight for all San Franciscans? Not just the rich. And as he said, billionaires at this moment are literally trying to buy the mayor's office. Daniel Lurie's family has written $1 million checks. An outside New York billionaire just last week wrote a check to Mayor London Breed. And as contrast, and my mother's here tonight, she wrote me a check for $150. And I'm so proud of that check. Because of public financing, that gets multiplied by 6, and it turns into a $1,000 check. I have over 2,000 grassroots donors donating to my campaign, and I'm proud of that because I fought for working and middle-class families every day that I've worked in the city for the last 24 years. Of all the candidates on this stage, I bring the most diverse set of experiences to this job. I worked for 2 mayors, Mayor Willie Brown, Mayor Gavin Newsom. I was a deputy department head. I ran my own small business. I worked for Public Works, and I worked for organized labor for almost a decade. This is not an entry-level job. This is not a learn-on-the-job opportunity. You have to be ready for this job day one. The stakes are too high, and I come ready for this job. I'm proud to be endorsed by more union members, labor organizations, some of whom are here tonight, than any other candidate on this stage. And why? Because I fought for working and middle-class families every single day and from day one. I'll fight every single day that I'm in office to build a safe, affordable, thriving city for all San Franciscans. I hope you'll join me. Thank you.
And finally, former interim mayor.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone tuning in this evening. You know, this election, this mayoral election in November is going to come down to 2 questions. Are you satisfied with the leadership inside of City Hall? Or do you believe we need to turn the page and chart a new chapter for the city of San Francisco? I'm running for mayor because I believe San Francisco deserves better. We need change. I'm proud to have served in City Hall for 7.5 years. I'm proud to have served as your mayor in 2018. And when I left office, our city was in a much different, much better place than it is today. We've grown our police department to record staffing levels. I had cleared out the large attendant candidates on the streets of our city, and our economy was completely humming. But I've been gone from City Hall for 6 years, focused on my family, and I don't regret a single second of that. But I'm running for office right now because we need to change leadership. And for me, it's about combining 7.5 years inside of City Hall with over 20 years in the private sector in business and finance to turn our city around. I believe experience matters. I've been mayor before. I know what that is. I know how to get the job done. I will bring that experience immediately. Competence matters. Yes, Mayor Breed has been here for 6 years, and she has an amazing personal story, but after 6 years, you don't get to have a plan, you have a track record. And this is a track record in our current mayor of failed leadership. And also, I believe strong vision matters for the city of San Francisco. We need a mayor who's going to lead with a roadmap for the residents of our city to inspire every single San Francisco resident to move our city forward. My vision for the city of San Francisco is a city that is safe, with clean streets, a growing economy, vibrant neighborhoods, and once again, a focus on families. To me, running for mayor this year is also about what we teach our children. Because when you see an issue and you have something to offer, you engage, you fight in the arena. And aside from my family, the city of San Francisco is the only other thing that I'd be willing to fight for in this race.
Mr. Farrell, thank you very much. So a big round of applause for all the candidates.